This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. Our own little technical difficulties. Mass.dot CEO Derek Cravat.
Yes, representing Secretary and CEO Jamie Tessler here.
Mass.dot Highway Ann Sullivan.
Yes, Ann Sullivan representing Highway Administrator Jonathan Gulliver.
Gardner Trevor Beauregard.
Present.
Leominster Mark Pemerini.
Present.
Montachusett Regional Planning Commission Guy Cobacero.
Present.
Montachusett Regional Transit Authority George Cahaley.
Present.
Subregion 1 is Brian Croto here. I don't see him. He had registered. Okay. Subregion 2, Brian Doheny is here. No, do not see him either. Subregion 3, Tim Kilhart.
Present.
And we do not have anyone from Subregion 4 yet, but we do have a quorum.
Okay, sounds good.
7 members present.
Great. Thanks, Brad.
Yep.
Next item on the agenda is public comments. Are there any members of the public present that would like to make a comment at this time? All right, seeing none. If you do have a comment at any point, just feel free to use the raise hand button on GoToMeeting. We'll be sure to call on you. Next item is the approval of the October 19th, 2022 meeting minutes. Is there a motion and second to approve these minutes as presented here?
So moved, Guy Cobacero.
Second, Ann Sullivan.
Great. Any comments or feedback on the minutes? All right. Seeing none, I think you can call the roll. Oh, I think you might be muted, Brad.
Going back and forth. Sorry about that. Mass.dot CEO Derek Cravat.
Yes.
Mass.dot Highway Ann Sullivan.
Yes, sorry.
Gardner Trevor Beauregard.
Yes.
Leominster Mark Pemerini.
Yes.
MRPC Guy Cobacero.
Yes.
Mark George Cahaley.
Yes.
And Subregion 3 Tim Kilhart.
Yes.
And that is unanimous.
All right, sounds good. The next item on the agenda is standing item for the statewide long-range transportation plan update for Mass.OTP. I know Chris, you usually give a quick update. Did you want to say a few words?
Yeah, so this is a standing item. I'm not sure if I have anything official to share, so Derek, you can jump in. I guess I do want to let members know that MassDOT is trying to perform some more targeted outreach within the regions with groups that might not have traditionally had their voices heard in past statewide long-range plans. So myself and Brad and a couple other members of the RPC staff are going to have a conversation about what that might look like. I think sometime in the next week or so. So we will keep members informed on those efforts.
Go good. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, and if you haven't signed up for our mailing list, you can do so at it's plans called Beyond Mobility. You can go to mass.gov/beyond-mobility, and you can sign up to receive updates. We should have some material and documents that we'll be able to share on the plan shortly that you'll receive if you sign up for that mailing list. So just encourage folks to do that. The next item on the agenda is the Montachusett Federal Fiscal Year 2023 to 2027 Transportation Improvement Program. First is discussion and on a possible transit and highway tip amendment. Number 2. Know we have a couple things here. So Brad, did you want to give a quick overview?
I'm going to turn it over to Bonnie Mahoney from Mark and George Cahaley.
Oh, great. Sounds good. I heard that Steve is back. Can you hear us, Steve?
Yeah, I can hear you guys. Can you guys hear me?
Yes,
we can hear you now. So I'll turn it back over to you to chair, Steve.
Thanks.
All right. Yep.
Okay. So Mart, in the year, it's pretty much a year. We have to submit our project plans to MassDOT by November 15th of every year. And since a year ago when we programmed the FY23 tip, um, the world has changed a lot. As far as pricing goes for construction projects and things and needs that have come up with Mart. So we've had quite a few changes that we need to introduce into this tip amendment. I'm trying to read. Um, it's kind of hard to see the screen, so I'm just kind of gonna sort of just talk off of the tip amendment that I submitted. So the first that I can see is that every year Mart buys paratransit vehicles to replace our existing fleet, and we usually buy five, and five is what I put in the tip every single year. The price of vehicles, transit vehicles it's not just construction, but transit vehicles also has risen significantly, and we had a major price bump. But because of all the other price bumps, we decided that instead of raising our budget by another 100,000, that we would reduce the number of vehicles that we're going to get this year and only buy three. So we've reduced the budget down to 330, which I think is just a small decrease. Um, and we're only going to buy three vehicles instead of five. The other things is we have um, deleted quite a few projects. I don't know, Brad, if there's a section for deleted projects on the handout. But we deleted our Ford transmissions. The reason we did that is last year we had this same project. It was one of those projects that we put into the 5-year tip a little bit in every year. And last year we were able to buy more than just the five that we had programmed for the same cost. And we were also told by our vehicle maintenance crew that the issues with the Ford transmissions had been worked out, and so they weren't being replaced as frequently as they had been in the previous 5 years. So we've actually removed that from the 23 tip and also removed that from our 24 to 28 submission altogether. So that project was canceled. With the introduction of electric vehicles and really the focus on electric vehicles, we've also decided not to refurbish our 2013 buses and instead just go with fleet replacement instead of extending the life of our um, older large transit buses. Mart over the past couple of years has been in the process of what we call right sizing our revenue vehicle fleet, so that we're using smaller vehicles on lower performing routes. And also with the new focus on moving to electric vehicles, we know that our tip in the future is going to be changing with the introduction of electric vehicles into our fleet. So we've decided not to do those refurbishments. That is another change that is in 23 that will continue throughout the rest of the 5-year tip that it was programmed from 23 to 27 as well. I'll stay in mind with the other three cancellations. We had a very small project on there to repair our salt shed or replace the canopy of our salt shed. We were able to do that project under maintenance. It only turned out to be like a $5,000 project. So we put that under maintenance and repairs and are removing the project from the tip list. The next one is our Water Street project. This is the facade refurbishment as well as the pavement area out front. Mart decided to cancel this project because we really needed the money to put to other construction projects. And we've also been trying to get the money to refurbish our Water Street facility through competitive discretionary grants. So we've decided to take it out of our out of 23. We have put a placeholder into 28 in the upcoming 24 to 28 tip for next year. But for now, that project's been canceled so that we can use the money to increase the budget on the other construction projects that are a higher priority. And then the last canceled project was the drainage studies. This was another very small project. The Fitchburg drainage issues that we're having at the Fitchburg parking garage with the drainage, we've decided to roll all of that into the same project as the stair tower, which is a different project ID. And then we found out during some preliminary investigations at the Leominster parking garage that there's a little catch basin that was just literally never cleaned out. So just by removing leaves, the problem with the drainage at the Leominster facility went away. So we're also canceling that project because there's one is being rolled in and the other one isn't needed. So before I get to the budget changes, which is all the yellow lines, I will talk about the green lines. So we had two projects that were FY22 that we weren't able to get to our 20% spend so we could pull down our RTA cap. And so we had to reprogram that portion. It wasn't the whole portion of the state funds, just a piece of each of the state funds into 23. And that essentially we had to take away the RTA cap from our other projects to reprogram this RTA cap so we could have our complete match for FY22 projects. So that's those first two very small lines that are under other funds. They're not federal funds. These are just a reprogramming of some state funds. And then the last one is our intermodal. We have had a small project for a study, or really it was an overall structural assessment of our Fitchburg parking garage. That is just a small project, $17,000. Well, we have found out that the cost of that project, that there were some structural deficiencies, and we are going to need to blow up. Oh no, this is for the HVAC. I'm sorry. I have two different projects stuck in my head. The HVAC project, we did a study of both the Water Street and the Main Street facilities. And out of that study, we are going to go to design for HVAC for Water Street. So one of the changes was to split out the design and the study into a brand new project because the cost of the Water Street project is going to raise substantially. So we're separating those two projects into strictly a design/study project, which is the brand new green one at the bottom, and then revising the cost for the HVAC construction piece itself. So that'll lead me right into the HVAC construction. It is the very last yellow line on your handout. The original budget was only $385, and we need to raise that up to almost $800,000 because the changes that we need to make at Water Street to have a working, cohesive HVAC system, not just a system that for years has had multiple Band-Aids put on it, is going to cost quite a bit of money. So that's what we've done. So that budget was increased from 385 to, which included the design, to currently it's at 771,995 with the design pulled out for another $98,000 listed below into a separate project that I've already spoke about. If we kind of go up the list from here, the one little yellow project that's stuck between those two red projects, this is our elevator rehab budget. We've increased the cost of this budget from $550 to $625, and this is purely because of the industry and the rise in construction costs. The If I keep going up the list from the bottom, the structural survey that I was referring to earlier, originally this was a $15,000 project, and we were able to have a contract for $15,350 for the structural assessment. But during the structural assessment, they found some major issues with the piering of the four corners of the parking garage, which is going to require a deeper dive study. So we need to add another $30,000 to that original budget, raising it from 15 to 45, so that we can take x-rays of the concrete and do some concrete testing to see why there is some cracking in the piers of the garage. And then probably in March, when we have the results of this study, we will need to probably add some construction funds to actually repair those piers. But once we actually know what's going on with those piers, then we can actually make an informed decision of what that budget might look like. So up from that is the access control standardization. This was another project that was raised from 210 to 250, again due to the increase in construction costs. Above that is the Leominster asphalt replacement. This was raised from can't see the numbers. So we raised that another $100,000 as well, again due to increased construction costs. The air fencing, thankfully, here we have a construction project that was decreased. We didn't cut the budget by very much, but we did cut the budget down to $48,890, which was the actual cost of the project. That project is actually complete. So there will be no incurring costs, and we've taken off the funds that we don't need for that project. And then the last project that is changed on the list is the Fitchburg parking garage. This is the project that entails refurbishing the stair tower. We have quite a bit of work that needs to be done in that stair tower. There are water leaks everywhere. There's ice that gets on the stairs. There's spalling. There's all kinds of conditions that have to be. That was always there. We've just increased the cost by about $95,000 on that, up the budget to $450 to wrap in the drainage study, and also for the increase again in construction cost. So those are all my very long list of changes. Does anybody have any questions?
All right. Anyone have any questions for Bonnie? All right. So Bonnie, this is a vote to put out for public comment, correct? Because there's a lot here.
Yeah.
All right. Since I don't see any questions, can I get a motion and a second to approve to put out for public comment?
So moved, Ann Sullivan.
Is there a second?
Second, Mark DeMarini.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Brad, you want to do the roll? I assume, Brad, are you doing it?
Yes.
Right.
MassDOT CEO Steve Warfel.
Yes.
MassDOT Highway Ann Sullivan.
Yes.
Gardner Trevor Beauregard.
Yes.
Leominster Mark Pomerini.
Yes.
MRPC Guy Corbacero.
Yes.
Mart George Cahaley.
Yes.
And Subregion 3 Tim Kilhart.
Yes.
So it passes unanimously.
All right, thank you, everybody, and thank you, Bonnie. And excuse my voice, I got a little bit of a cold. So now, I believe now, Brad, we also have a highway amendment, correct? That's for
Yes,
endorsement. I think George is doing this.
yes, correct.
All right, George, go ahead.
Thank you. 2023 TIP Amendment Number 1 was presented to the MPO at the October 19th MPO meeting for action to release the amendment for a 21-day public review and comment period. The amendment is for project number 609314, which is a roundabout project at the Greenville and Turnpike Roads intersection in Ashby. The amendment calls for the removal of the project from consideration in the TIP due to the successful advertisement of the project on August 27th. The removal of a project from the TIP requires an amendment. The total cost of the project is approximately 2.4 mil. A motion was passed by the MPO to release the amendment for the 21-day period that commenced on October 26th and ended at the end of business on November 15th. No comments were received as of the end of business yesterday. At the November 9th MJTC meeting, the MJTC passed a recommendation to the MPO that the amendment receive MPO endorsement. Today, the action we are seeking is a vote from the MPO to endorse the amendment. That's it.
All right,
That's all I
thanks,
have.
George. Can I get a motion and a second to endorse amendment number
So
1?
moved, Guy Corbisero.
Second, Ann Sullivan.
All right, any questions? All right, Brad, please read the roll.
Okay, MassDOT CEO, Steve Warfel.
Yes.
MassDOT Highway, Ann Sullivan.
Yes.
Gardner, Trevor Beauregard.
Yes.
Lemonster, Mark Palmerini.
Yes.
MRPC, Guy Corbisero.
Yes.
Mart, George Cahaley.
Yes.
And Subregion 3, Tim Kilhart.
Yes.
So it passes unanimously.
All right, thank you, everybody. Thank you, George. Let's move on to agenda item 6, which is a MART update on the Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan. I don't know who's doing this. Is this you, Bonnie, or is this George? George, who's doing it? Just curious.
This is me.
All right, go ahead, Bonnie.
Okay. So MART is required to review our public safety transportation plan every year and decide if there are changes that are required. This year we did have changes that were required due to the fact that Mohammed Khan retired last July and Bruno Fisher became the new administrator in September. However, the bipartisan infrastructure law that was passed by Congress earlier this year, earlier this year, also had some mandatory changes that were required to our safety plan. So it was fortuitous that we had to change the plan anyway, but the plan became a little bigger. The biggest part of the change that was required by the bipartisan infrastructure law was that any agency that quote served a large urban or areas of 200,000 population or more had to form an official safety committee that was composed of 50-50 members of management and labor frontline workers. Mart at first was very confused on whether we had to do this because our urbanized area is not a large urban. We are in a small urban. However, we do have member communities that are in the Boston UZA. We actually have 6 member communities that are a part of the Boston UZA. And we do travel out in our fixed route services to Boston and Worcester. So I got some advice from FTA, and they said that we should, just for safety's sake, proceed as if we were a large urban. So we did. So we formed a safety committee back in July. through an MOU that was signed with the local ATU 690 union. We have the union president, a driver representative, and a mechanics representative representing the frontline workers. And then we have myself as the compliance officer, Scott Rich, who is our assistant administrator, who has been designated by Bruno as the chief safety officer, and Melissa Lacaire, who is the assistant general manager for the management of transportation services, who is our operator. She is their management representative to the safety committee. We started having meetings to go over the safety plan, which is required under the changes in the law. And so the safety committee is required to make those to review the existing plan, make whatever modifications need to be made, and then approve the finalized plan and before we present it to anybody. So we're presenting it here, we're required to give a copy to MassDOT, we're required to present it to the MPO, and then after all of that is done, we must have final approval by our MART advisory board, and all of that has to be done before December 31st of 2022. So anyway, so those were the major changes that we made. Brian, if you scroll down a little bit. So this page really hasn't changed except for the fact that Bruno is now the accountable executive as our new administrator, and Scott Rich is the safety officer. You can keep going. Here is where we established the safety committee and all of those things that I just sort of explained to you, including the makeup of the members of the community and the date that the committee was established. So that's that section. And then this section number 3 existed before, except I had to add in the piece at the very top about how it has to be approved through the safety committee first. The safety committee met on November 9th. I was elected as chairperson of the safety committee by the rest of the crew there. So I have put that it was approved by the safety committee on November 9th. Some of the other dates that go into this section number 3 right here won't be completed until the board designate or finally approves it. I will go in after this meeting today, after presenting it to you, and fill in those dates as well. I might have actually filled them in since we knew when the MPO meeting was going to be, but and then I changed the last part was that last paragraph on that page was the fact that we used to do the annual review in February, but because of the new time, and then have it done by July 20th, but because of the new timing established in the bipartisan infrastructure law, we've changed it to April and July, and the annual review has to be complete by the beginning of the federal fiscal year now, which is October 1st. So those are the dates that have been changed in that, all the changes for that section. Okay, you can scroll down. The targets, we had to add, the other part of the bipartisan infrastructure law is that you have to have a risk reduction program. So previously this section was called safety performance targets, and now it is called risk reduction performance targets because of the language in the law. So we have had to add in, we already had targets for fatalities, injuries, accidents, and system reliability. We had to add in driver assaults. That was something that was written into the law to add a program to mitigate driver assaults. I know in large metropolises, they have higher incidents of driver assault. And then I added this little section here, this OSONOC. This is a classification that NTD has about these are incidents or injuries that happen or safety events that happen that can't be classified as major. So this is any time that a customer was transported by ambulance, whether it was because of, and these are non-accident related transports. So the accident related transports are in the table at the top, and the non-accident transports are in that Asanok events box. So, okay, you can scroll down. You can keep going. All right. The safety management policy changed very little, as there wasn't really anything in the law that really changed how we have to do our policy. So you can keep going. This section didn't change. Yeah, go up just a little bit. At the bottom of that previous page. Yeah, right here. This is the part we had to make sure, the safety reporting. This is the part that came up from the safety committee. The previous mechanism that we were devising for the frontline workers to report safety incidents or hazards that they find out on the road, it's the hazard reporting, was to put some computers into the driver's lounges and common areas of where the frontline workers congregate, so that they could sit down and just input it anonymously, or they don't have to be anonymous. They could do an email for follow-up. And then COVID hit. And we weren't allowing any drivers to hang out anywhere at any time. Just come in, turn in your paperwork, and leave. That's what was kind of happening during the height of COVID. So that everything got sort of sidelined in that aspect. So what the safety committee decided was probably a good workaround. And some of the drivers also expressed that they simply wouldn't do it if they had to sit in the lobby, sit in the lounge and type on a computer and have somebody looking over their shoulder and this and that. They're like, oh, we just won't do it. We won't report safety incidences. So we're like, well, that goes against the whole purpose of having this plan. So we decided that the drivers already use tablets for their paratransit and other incidents. So we're just going to put an app on their tablets, and then we'll have other tablets that are available that if somebody wants to go and put it in, or just an app that they can get to online, so that they can report incidents in an environment where they feel comfortable. So that's the biggest change in this section. So go ahead. Risk management, that really hasn't changed the way we do safety identification and risk management. We did have to, and I think it's at the bottom of this section, Brian. Yeah, at the very bottom, the safety set aside, that little paragraph at the very bottom of section 6. This was another thing that was required by the BIL. We have to spend 0.75% of our 5307 funding on risk mitigation or risk reduction projects every year. And it's especially enforced if we don't make any of our targets. So this is just a paragraph that talks about that set aside and some of the different kinds of things that we would do, the projects that we would do, which is mostly training, de-escalation training, sensitivity training, that type of thing. Safety assurance, this hasn't changed at all. I think you can skip down. I don't think there's a lot of changes through the rest, but we did add some trainings under section 8. We added DDS sensitivity / sexual harassment training for drivers, de-escalation training, emergency evacuation trainings. And then MART has recently brought some in-house staff to do maintenance maintenance of our facilities. So we added a section on non-union MART maintenance staff and the different trainings that they need to take. So there's nothing new in that section. So and then we added one additional document to this list, which is the procedures for inspections of the vehicles post-accident. That was one attachment we didn't previously have. So I know it was quite a few changes that we had to make, and I know I've been going on and on, but I think that's a pretty comprehensive review of all the changes that we made to our PTASP. Other than our pretty new logo too. So that's it. Any questions?
Yeah, any questions for Bonnie? So Bonnie, we need a vote to accept this today.
I don't really know if the language is very it's not really clear on whether the MPO has to accept it or if I just really have to present it. So.
All right. So any questions for Bonnie first? All right. I don't see any. Derek, what have we been doing? What other MPOs doing? Do we need a vote on this or?
So I believe, yeah, other MPOs have voted. It maybe just be safe to just do a quick vote, just to be consistent. Yeah.
All right. Does anyone feel comfortable making a motion second to endorse the changes Bonnie went over today?
I'll make a move to accept the changes in the Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan for Mart.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Who was that?
Trevor.
Oh, all right. Last call for questions. All right. Seeing none. Brad, you want to read the roll?
Sure. MassDOT CEO Steve Werfel.
Yes.
MassDOT Highway Ann Sullivan.
Yes.
Gardner Trevor Beauregard.
Yes.
Lemonster Mark Pomerini.
Yes.
MRPC Guy Corbacero.
Yes.
Mart George Cahaley.
Yes.
And Subregion 3 Tim Kilhart.
Yes.
Passes unanimously.
All right. Thank you, Bonnie. So we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is number 7, which is an update on the regional transportation plan. And Brad, who's doing this?
Brian Doherty is.
That's what I thought. All right, go ahead, Brian.
Okay, so we wanted to keep this agenda item on the RTP, or sorry, excuse me, on the MPO for the time being, just to give updates, much like we've been doing with the state long range transportation plan. So I don't plan on going over any of these bullets in complete detail, but just to give the group an idea of how the plan development is going. We've included these handouts for the last few meetings, the vision, goals, objectives, and strategies, and also the performance measures of the 2020 plan. And this is what staff has been revising. And we have been going over these with the JTC, and we plan on doing that in the next few meetings as well. Last week, we took the first few goals here and the performance measures and objectives and strategies under those goals, and we've reviewed with them what our suggestions are and gotten feedback. So we'll continue with that process in the coming months. Let's see. Oh, yeah, we also kicked off our public outreach sessions this week. We've had 4 so far. We had 2 on Monday and 2 yesterday. Those were specific to the subregions. So we've been getting some feedback. Basically, we've been discussing what the RTP is and what the purpose of it is, and obtaining some feedback on some of the important needs of each community that we've spoken with so far. Tomorrow we have another outreach session with the cities, Fitchburg, Leominster, and Gardner, and that's at 10 o'clock virtually. We also have a transit-specific meeting the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. That's in person at Mart's facility on Water Street in Fitchburg. That's in person, as I mentioned. That's from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. And we'll be discussing some transit issues at that meeting as well as whatever else pops up. Also, we've been discussing whether to have additional outreach meetings as the process moves along a little bit further. Possibly sometime after the holidays in January and February, we can discuss in detail a little bit more about the plans and some of the things that we have incorporated into it. The last item I have is the survey is live on our website. So we have that available to take. If you just simply go to mrpc.org, you can see it at the top of the scroll here. Take the Montachusett RTP Public Outreach Survey. It's a Survey Monkey survey. So I believe there's like 15 or 16 questions. So we've already gotten a number of surveys back through the online version. We also plan on dropping off paper versions of this survey to councils on aging and libraries, and we plan on doing that next week. So we'll have those available at those locations as well. We'll probably close the survey sometime in January or February. We'd like to keep it open for as long as we can to get as much response as we can. At that point, we'll incorporate the results and the feedback that we get into the plan itself. So that's all I have for the RTP. And as I mentioned, next time I'll give a brief update on developments as well.
All right, thanks, Brian. Any questions for Brian? All right, I don't see any. Thanks, Brian. We'll now move on to agenda item 8, which are updates. The first updates are from the Highway Division, District 2. I think Daryl, you're here, right?
Yes, I am. Yep.
Go ahead, Daryl.
Okay, so for FY23, we have project 608784. This is Templeton Roundabout construction at the intersection of Patriots Road, South Main, North, and Gardner Road. Roadway design is at 100%. The 100% review is completed, and PS&E is due on November 23rd next week. The current add date is January 21st, 2023. Next project is 609107. That's the Phillipston-Templeton pavement preservation related work on Route 2. This project was advertised on November 4th, and the bid opening is December 13th. Next, we have project 608723. This is an FY24. This is Athol intersection improvements at Crescent Street and Chestnut Hill Ave. The design is at 75%, and we're waiting 75% response to comments. 100% is due January 20th, 2023, and the current add date is January 6th, 2024. And that's all I have for now.
All right, anyone have any questions for Daryl? All right, seeing none, D3's up. Ann, are you doing that?
Yeah, I'll do it. The first project is Westminster, Route 140 from Patricia Road to Princeton Town Line. That is at PS&E. The Gardner project, roundabout construction at Elm Street, Pearl Street, Central Street, and Green Street is at 100%. The PS&E is due November 22nd. The Harvard Bridge project, Route 2 over Nashua, Tank Road, Boston Main Railroad. That is a book job. We don't have the submission yet. I was expecting it earlier this month, but they did move the add date out to April. So I don't know when the 100% are in, but I'm assuming they'll come in before the end of the calendar year. Fitchburg, Route 2, that is at 75%. The 100/PS&E is due December 12th. Ashby, Greenville Road, and Turnpike Road, that was the one that we just pulled, amended off the tip or adjusted off the tip. It was advertised last August. And Gardner Elm Street resurfacing, that's a Safe Routes to School project. That is at 100%, and the PS&E is due December 1st.
All right, anyone have any questions for Ann? All right, thanks, Ann. The next update is from Mark, George, or Bonnie. Got anything?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chairman. I have some update on a project we are working on. The Fitchburg Intermodal Transportation Center rehabilitation project, the roof replacement is underway, and Mart anticipate the completion of the project by December The other project we are working on is has been completed. The construction, the Air Depot Square pedestrian plaza, the construction of phase 3 of Depot Square pedestrian plaza located at the MBTA station has been completed. The phase 3 of the project was the restroom facility, the fountain, waiting shelter, and the lighting of the plaza. Also, we completed the installation of the fencing at the rail trail east of the parking facility in Air. And we had the ribbon cutting last week, and I will ask Alan if he likes to add anything about that ribbon cutting of that project.
Oh, sure, George. Thank you very much. Yeah, Alan Minoyan, Director of Community Economic Development, Town of Air. Yes, as George just said, a fantastic ceremony, George, ribbon cutting. And again, what's really great about that project, George, my goodness, it's sort of the textbook of the nexus of multimodal transportation right there at Depot Square in Air, where you have the commuter rail, where we have the Nashua River Rail Trail intersecting right there. We have all our bicycle lanes on Main Street, automobile, of course, highly walkable. So that project, George, in that little park, Depot Square Park, is to us really the definition of where we're going with a multimodal transit lifestyle and what we're trying to do, in downtown Air and Air in general. So yes, thank you very much. It came out great, and we're going to keep enhancing it. And we hope to start seeing some great residential development now, right there in the downtown. And hopefully the automobile will not be the focal point of everyone's life here going forward. Thank you, George.
Thank you. And the other project we are working on is MART bus shelters grant. MART has been awarded $180,000 for bus shelter through the Shared Streets and Spaces program under Mass DOT for fiscal year 2023. MART will be installing bus shelter in Fitchburg, Gardner, and Atoll. MART has installed recently a new bus shelters, two of them, one in Gardner and the other one in Fitchburg at Portman Place, 166 Boulder Drive. And we used 5307 funding program for these two shelters. The other thing we are working on is as part of MART, the system-wide bus route evaluation and schedule update. We had updated the Atoll Orange bus route schedule and effective Monday, October 31st, we start that new schedule, and we add a new neighborhood, Pigweg Exchange Street area, and a new stop at North Quabbin Family Physicians. And that bus route start running and picking up more riders than before. This is what I have so far. Any question?
Any questions for George? All right, I don't see any, George. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to the next update is the MGTC. Sherry, I think this is you.
Yep, I know Brad had to skip out, so I will be updating everybody on the JTC. That met last Wednesday, November 9th. The major topic at that meeting was a presentation on safe routes to school, similar to what was shown at the MPO last month. There was also more in-depth review of the RTP goals, strategies, and performance measures. The MJTC will not meet in December, so our next meeting will be on January 11th at 2:30. And next we have 2 handouts that are up for discussion. We have one from MassDOT. There's a Northern Tier Passenger Rail Study newsletter from October 31st. The newsletter discusses the types of railroad signal systems that are in place and how they operate. There's also a brief discussion related to cost estimation and how they are derived. No further information is provided on the next public meeting for this study, but when we receive information, we'll post it on the MRPC website under announcements. The next handout is a brief overview and discussion of the US DOT Thriving Communities Program, or TCP. So the TCP aims to ensure that disadvantaged communities adversely or disproportionately affected by environmental, climate, and human health policy outcomes have the technology, tools, and organizational capacity to compete for federal aid and deliver quality infrastructure projects that enable their communities and neighborhoods to thrive. So the TCP facilitates the planning and development of transportation and community revitalization activities and provides tools to ensure that under-resourced communities can access the historical funding provided by the bipartisan infrastructure bill. For federal fiscal year 22 funding, the TCP offers 2 separate response opportunities for potential applicants, a letter of interest and a notice of funding opportunity that are described in more detail in the handout. There's also a page with links to the US DOT website that has additional information. So that's all I have for the handouts. And I think that's it for the updates, minus the next MPO meeting.
All right.
MRPC.
Any questions for Sherry? All right, we'll move on to the next update, which is from MRPC. Guy, you got anything? Guy, I think you're muted.
Let's try again. Okay, the Massachusetts Broadband Institute has officially opened its Municipal Digital Equity Planning Program application to all communities in Massachusetts. The Mass Broadband Institute DEP program will accomplish 2 goals: guide municipal decision-making and investments that will increase access, adoption, and usage of the internet for the population most impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Also, prepare municipalities to submit grant proposals to existing or forthcoming state or federal programs to support digital equity activities. Municipalities can now apply for this program via a simple online application. MRPC can assist your community to complete your community's online application. Don't hesitate to reach out to Karen Chapman, Planning and Development Director, and Jeffrey Lagos, Principal Planner, or Glenn Eaton to request assistance. MBI Mass Tech Collaboration will assign a planning assistant organization to your community. MRPC has been approved by the Mass Tech to deliver DEP services in the Montachusett region. MRPC welcomes you to attend a Lunch and Learn meeting to be held at noon on Thursday, December 1st, 2022. Registration information can be found on our website. Please attend or feel free to send a colleague from your community. And that's all I have. There is a handout with a lot more information if you want to access that. Thank you.
Thanks, Guy. Any questions? Anyone ask for Guy? All right, thanks, Guy. We'll move on to agenda item 9, which is administrative matters, and I believe our next MPO meeting will be December 21st. Is that correct, Brian and Sherry? Does that sound right?
Yeah. Yes, December 21st.
All right. And then with that, I just need a motion, a second to adjourn, please.
So moved, Guy Corbacero.
Is there a second?
I'll second, Ann Sullivan.
All right, all in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
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 All right. Thank you, everybody.
Aye.
Have a good Thanksgiving. Stay safe out there. See you in December. Take it easy.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Steve. Bye, everyone.